Hello everyone, Vince Well singing again, and welcome to another edition of Random Posture Critiques. Today we will be reading a very interesting story, assumedly, by XCLASSIFIEDX, and this has the distinction of probably being the most recent story to have been covered on this little series of mine. So yeah, that's that. So there's a fair chance that the author of this story might actually read this, or well, I don't know, read their own story, why not? Might actually stumble upon this video and see that I am ripping his story an asshole or potentially praising it. So it would be cool if the author of the story actually did see this, and comment down below. Feel free and tell me what you think of my critique, and if you think I was too harsh or you think I didn't quite grasp the work, or just shoot the shit. I'm always game, brother. So, this is Close the Door by XCLASSIFIEDX. In my younger and vulnerable years, I had an experience which, up to this day, I cannot decide if it was a dream or not. Well, here's what happened. It's kind of an abrupt transition into another paragraph there. Like, they're just two sentences. What's going on? I was going to sleep when my mom called me downstairs saying, "Don't forget to close your door, sweetie." As me in my younger years would tell myself, why would I need to close the door? It's so dark and scary in my room. What? Wait, as me in my younger years, I would tell my... Okay, I think a comic... I think that comment would have been good there. Like, between younger and years. I know many of you do, or even say that, but we all know that we can't disobey our parents, right? Why are they're constantly the paragraph is just either one or two sentences? Why is that? It's kind of distracting. After a few weeks, curiosity started building inside me, because I noticed Mom started to remind us to close the bedroom door more frequently. So, like any curious child, I asked Mom. I asked a dozen questions about why I need to close the door. Mom answered all the... Well, why would you need to ask a dozen questions? Like, how many different times can you ask the same question? Like, Mom, why can't I close the door? It seems like a very straightforward, simple thing. Like, you either get an answer or you don't. Why did you, look up a thesaurus to, make it seem like you're asking us, a different question every time? Like you do, job interviews do, where they'll ask you the same question multiple times in different ways to see if you slip up and don't remember your answer? Mom answered all these questions one by one, but every question answered rates another. It would help if you actually said what the questions were, because I can't fathom any questions outside of the one that was, kind of poised at the beginning of the story. Mom became tired of answering the torrent of questions and just plainly told me, "Just close the door, sweetie. You don't want to be a bad boy, do you?" I replied with my casual, "Yes, Mom," but deep inside, I knew that I need to find the answer myself. Tense swap, not good. That's the time when I thought of that foolish idea. I won't close the door. What a fucking rebel this guy is. After a few more days, I had come up with a plan. I would ask my two older brothers to accompany me. Yes, I have two older brothers, and that are just 3 and 4 years older than me, respectfully. And we would stay up late until we fell asleep, and we won't close the door. Yes, that's simple. Those the parentheses, those aside comments are kind of irking me, and I can't quite explain why. I don't know. I don't it might be a difference of opinion when it comes to approaches in narration. I kind of prefer that narration styles for horror kind of be a little bit more dry and to the point, straightforward when it comes to describing certain things. And I don't care for narrators that feel the need to try to nudge, wink, wink at the audience. And this is a kind of a more subdued example of that. They're not rolling their eyes every few seconds, but I don't know. It kind of takes me out because I feel like they're being a little bit cavalier about something that supposedly happened to them. All that's left is when the mom and dad aren't home. Then one night, Mom told us that she and Dad were having dinner outside, and my oldest brother was in charge. Like, what do you mean? Like, were they going out to eat, or were they just like eating on, having a picnic on the lawn, or eating on a patio? My heart was pounding in my chest because I knew it was that it was the night to answer my questions. My eyes are fucked up. This was the night where I would demolish all that curiosity building inside me. I asked my brothers, and they both agreed. I was happy they agreed because I was happy because they agreed to stay. Why is that in parentheses? Like that seemed. That's kind of redundant and like a redundant statement that doesn't really add anything. And also, it's like why is it in parentheses? It's a statement that can that it could lead into the other one without being an inside comment. Here's what happened next, and why is this this next segment in brackets? What this is like a weirdly formatted story, like whole paragraphs or there's like one or two sentences, and now we have a segment right here that's listing off the events of the night for some reason. Like, why don't you just describe it without like listing it off right here? Like, I don't know. It feels like this feels like someone like the author tried to make it more they thought an interesting format would be more engaging. That's an assumption on my part. It's kind of an assholeish assumption, but that's what I feel like right now. At 10 o'clock, we all got to my room and waited. Nothing happened. At 12 o'clock, did I say 12 or 10 before? I think it said 10. At 11 o'clock, the lights in the living room turned on, but we realized that it was just Mom and Dad. They went straight to their room. Perfect. They hadn't noticed that my door was open. You guys can't see it, but every time those sentences in parentheses come up, I'll like lean into the microphone and like put my hand over my mouth, like hey, just between you and me. At exactly 12 o'clock, I felt drowsy. But before I went to sleep, I checked on my brothers. They were both asleep, so I went to sleep thinking, they were both asleep, so I went to sleep thinking that there was no reason to close the door that night. At 3 o'clock, I woke up. I don't know why, I just woke up. I noticed an outline of someone standing in the doorway, watching us sleep. Well, okay, I'm gonna have the link to the story in the description. So you guys can't see it on screen right now because I usually just put an image of whatever while I'm reading. But for some reason, to emphasize the weirdness, the horror part, the sting, like, oh shit, there's someone in the room with me watching us. Watching us sleep is in italics. Well, only watching us is in italics. For some reason, sleep isn't. I don't know why. My heart rate wants to raise to 100. Now, again, parentheses for no reason. Another side statement, and then the figure spoke. You forgot to close the door, sweetie. That, oh, it's just my mom, there's nothing to worry about, thought went up to my head, until she spoke again. What did I tell you, sweetie? I told you to close the door, right? She's becoming progressing more cockney. I answered, Mom, I'm sorry. I just wanted. And then she spoke in a voice that didn't sound human, a voice that sounded like the devil in the movie. What did I tell you? That's what the devil sounds like. I was pretty sure that my brothers would wake up by now, but no, they were still fast asleep. What happened next was extremely terrifying. Again, don't do that. You don't get to tell me what I should find scary, friend. You let the images, you weave a narrative and let me come to the conclusion that I'm going to come to. Now, if you're going to say your character was scared, it tends to be a little bit it tends to be a little bit drawn out and a little bit tedious. The way that people do it, like, oh, I was so scared, and like after a while it gets kind of like annoying. But it makes more sense in saying like, here's the part where you should be scared. This is the scary part. This is the stinger, brother. She stepped into the light. Ah, what are you? I'm not screaming this. Ah, I screamed. It seemed like no one could hear me because no one woke up or they just didn't care. Not most unlikely. What? Okay, whatever. I complained about this enough times. It's gotten probably annoying. To be honest, dear reader, I can't describe what I saw, but here's the closest that I can get. Its outline looked like Mom, but its face, oh God, its face, its mouth was like the mouth of the Demigorgon. Well, don't do that. Please don't do that. Nothing takes me out of a supposedly like. Okay, I'll reserve this criticism until after I'm done reading. And his eyes were like a terciers. I think that's how you pronounce it. Those little crazy monkeys with the little tiny monkeys with the like giant bug eyes, and I think they'll like slam their heads into the like when they're distressed or something like that. And its nose, it looked like it'd been ripped out, revealing the nasal cavity. I screamed at the top of my lungs. I screamed like I was gonna rip my vocal cords. Then it spoke again in the same inhuman voice. Shh, sweetie, can't you see your brother's sleeping? I just come in to check on you and tell you my #1 rule. Now, go back to sleep, sweetie. And with that, it stepped out of the light and closed the door. That was the whole story. What was I gonna say? The Demigorgon from I don't know if anyone's familiar with the hit TV show Stranger Things on Netflix. It came out, I think, about 3 years ago or so, or maybe 4, and it was a pretty popular horror character. And I think it's also like the name itself was based on a D&D monster, and the characters in the game found this monster and named it after the D&D monster. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The point I'm trying to make is, if you can help it, and can you please keep the pop culture references to a minimum? Also, I think it's kind of lazy to just take an image from another popular horror monster and like slap it into your thing. But that's not one of my major problems. My major problem is that it feels like a cop-out when it comes to writing descriptive like descriptions of like your horrific monster that we're supposed to be like scared by, because I don't know, like that's too popular of an image for me. Like when you name the thing that you're referencing, you're using it as a reference as to what this monster looks like, and my mind immediately goes to a fictional setting, and this is supposed to be the tone of the story and the narration style is supposed to be it's told in the first person, and it's told in retrospect of things that this is a person like recalling everything that happened to them and as they happen, and he's presenting this story as if it was something that really actually happened, but then they make a reference to a fictional monster and a thing, and immediately makes me think of the fictional monster. And honestly, I don't know. It takes me out of the story because my mind immediately goes to Stranger Things, and I am briefly taken out of your story for a moment. If I could make some suggested reading for you, Mr. I guess Classified, I would recommend reading the works of Clive Barker. Now, I'll warn you right now, here and now, they are weirdly raunchy because Clive Barker is a weirdo, and he's into that kind of crap. You probably know him from the stuff like Hellraiser, and I think he wrote the short story that the movie Candyman was derived from and adapted from. And one of the skills that Clive Barker has as a horror writer is that he can, with words, paint a vivid image of any horrific creature or eldritch entity that he can you can think of, and he'll do it in such immense graphic detail, and he'll use sometimes he'll make some colorful similes to describe certain aspects of them that might be a little bit hard for us to completely gauge, the description of the Cenobites in the Hellbound Heart, the book that was that eventually led to the Hellraiser movie, is so vivid, and you can actually see them, and they're horrific and grotesque, and it paints a picture, and it's effective and it sticks with you. But not so much here, where it's just it looked like the Thing from the Thing that you know of. And also, I don't have that much of a problem with the monkey. I think that's kind of a cute little reference. At the same time, I think most people most people probably don't know what a one of those monkeys look like, or even know that was probably a monkey at all. Like, you gotta act like the people aren't too familiar with it. You gotta approach this story, and it's like how you describe things, as if people aren't privy to certain aspects of pop culture. Now, you can obfuscate that when it comes to like things that are more common knowledge. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's like certain things that are common knowledge enough to where people know it. Like, a fair amount of people will know it immediately, and another half of people would probably like need some description. So that's the only time where you don't have to really like go that much detail on it. But yeah, I'm kind of going off track right here. I'm kind of getting hung up on this one thing. What did I think about the story overall? It's very weak, very weak. Although I get the gut feeling that this is written like this is someone who's like kind of starting things off. And honestly, if you look back at my first piece that I ever submitted to a basically like any horror circles, it's roughly the same quality as what I initially put out. And I do apologize for indicting you like that, Classified. But I think that's the only thing I could really compare it to, like my first crappy story. It sounds harsh, and I don't want you to get discouraged or get upset, because the point of this story is not to really lay into this series. It's to not lay into people and like make them feel like shit. I want to genuinely see improvements in whatever new works you're coming out. Although it's been like almost a year now, so probably you as far as I know, maybe you took like leaps and bounds in terms of his the quality of the story. But so what would I recommend to improve the story? Well, first let's go over some issues that I have with it. For one, the story does not really include any details. The main character himself does not really have much of a personality, or he doesn't feel like anything. His age isn't even named. This feels like someone like the Classified really rushed through the I think he had an idea for like the story he wanted to go for, and it's a very simple premise too. It's almost like one of those like Grimm's fairy tale-esque premises where like a dark twist on like a morality tale almost. The parent like instructs their child to do this one thing or not do this one thing. The child disobeys, and he subsequently pays for it. And it's a very standard formula, and it's not interesting, but it's like it's a kind of a cliche idea, but it's one that works. Like, and honestly, when it came to the story, I assumed that the twist would be something along the lines of the mom and dad, or maybe the mom herself. At some point in the middle of the night, she's engaging in some unscrupulous activity or something that's like a little bit more dark or morose, and she does not want the kids to walk in on her, so she instructs them to keep the door shut. So if they open the door, she can hear them coming and put a stop to it, and then usher them back off to bed, or something like that. Instead, we get this weird, unexplained thing that really wasn't. It kind of comes the fuck out of nowhere too, because it didn't feel like there was any real lead-in to the twist of the monster. And I think at the beginning they Classified alludes to the idea that it might have just been a dream, but the narrator doesn't really know. That's not really strong enough, and you kind of forget about that at the beginning of the story too. Like it starts the story off, and then you kind of just like completely toss that out of your mind as you go along and try to absorb the rest of the details of the story, or lack thereof, because there isn't really that many details or descriptions of anything in the story. Like, one of the issues I had personally was the introduction of the brothers, and the brothers are introduced, and then the whole incident happens with the mom, or the demon mom, the Demigorgon, and it's supposed to be like I guess unsettling or horrifying or trippy that the brothers aren't waking up despite all the noise, and it doesn't really work because the brothers had no presence in the story because they were just introduced in one paragraph, and we don't ever see them engage with their younger brother. I think it would have been beneficial to have them be present throughout the story, maybe, or to really stretch the story out just a little bit by having interactions between the mom and the sons and and the narrator actually elaborated on, so we get a decent gauge as to who they are. And like even with the thing that happened with the mom, it would be a little bit more effective if the mom actually had a presence in the story in and of itself, but she doesn't really have much because like she doesn't really have a personality. Like I always talk about the juxtaposition between how this person starts out at the end, like starts out in the beginning of the story, and how what they become at the end of the story, and you need to set up some kind of characterization so it makes it all the more jarring and all the more unnerving to see how far they have come or how far they've fallen. So I think that it would have been better like to have the mom be more present in the beginning and to actually have the engagements that she was having with the narrator actually written instead of just like vaguely described by saying like, oh, we talked and she said like whatever, just don't do it. Like because like if it I don't know, like it's kind of weak that we don't really get like a read for how she reacts when he really like presses her on this, or why he would even press her on it. Like maybe that could be a part of his characterization. Maybe just like too inquisitive for his own good. Like again, that's kind of like a cliche in and of itself when it comes to horror stories and not just creepypasta. But it would be something. It'll be something more than what we have now. Okay, what else? The side statements, the sentences in parentheses are kind of annoying and obnoxious to me. Again, it might be a matter of personal preferences. I'm the kind of guy that likes horror dialogue and not dialogue, but horror descriptions and like narration to be kind of like straightforward to the point, with exceptions paid to people who are able to garnish the narration with like playful similes and interesting like comparison pieces and metaphors, but it feels like I get taken out of the story every time the narrator puts a comment in parentheses and like I call it a side comment where he like leans in and is like, well, not even really, that's an exaggeration, where he's like well, I went to the beach one day, because I needed to get some ice cream. Like you don't need that. Also, the formatting of the story is kind of like distracting. I don't know why they chose to do it like this. Because, as I said multiple times, like it's just a few sentences, like one or two sentences, and then the next paragraph starts, and I don't know why. And I don't think it's a matter of new dialogue, new speaker, new paragraph, because some of these paragraphs don't start off with a new speaker. They don't start off with dialogue, and it's kind of trips me up sometimes. And also this one segment right here, and again I'll link to the description so you can see it, where the narrator describes like how he and his brothers waited for something to happen with the door open, and they went to sleep, and then they woke up. He woke up to see the thing staring at them. But it's in brackets, and I don't know why. I don't know what he thought would add to that. It's just like weirdly distracting. Like you could have just described all of this in just one or two paragraphs, or not even one or two paragraphs. Like in like two sentences at most, because it's like, well, we went to bed, we waited for a while, and then nothing happened. When I woke up, it was like 3 o'clock. I saw the alarm clock, and it said about 3. I don't know what compelled me to wake up, but I felt like unnerved, like a chill go over my body. And as I sat up, I see something in the corner of my eye, because the bed's like facing the side of the door, and I see my mom standing, or see a figure staring at us from the side of the bed, like something like that. Like that all could have been fit into like one paragraph. Like you didn't need this weird bracket shit. Trying to think of I criticize like a lot of this, but let's talk about what can be done to improve it in regards to like story structure. Well, for one thing, you need to have a consistent type of narration. You need to go for a consistent type of tone, because you initially started this story off by, the story is supposed to be in the past tense, told in the past tense, like something that actually happened to the main character, and I would assume that they would like conduct themselves appropriately, like maybe they're kind of like looking back in hindsight, and their tone would be a little bit more wistful or kind of muddy, or you know what I mean? Like they would just try to recall the details as best as they could remember it, you know. Like when you like, I screamed like I was gonna rip out my vocal cords. It was like, oh face, oh god, the mouth and the mouth of Demogorgon, and it's not like why have that weird stutter there? Like I assume it's supposed to be something that's. I was just assuming it's something that's just jotted down instead of just like audibly told. Like those weird stammers, like they don't really add anything. Like to describe this, just have a consistent type of narration. Those aside glance things, like those aside comments, like please cut those out. Like if you ever choose to write this, and also really do your best to work with the premise that you have. Is what I would also suggest to the writer of the story. Again, it's not like a great premise that'll just like blow your socks off, but it's one that it really does kind of lend itself to like a traditional like little, like I said, like almost like a Grimm's fairy tale, like a dark like take on a morality tale where mom says not to do this, I chose to do it, and then I paid the price. The twist of this is really, again, fucking weak sauce. You need it more than just like, oh, my mom, turns out my mom was a scary monster. I don't think you like, if that was supposed to be like some weird allusion to maybe a sleep paralysis demon, it doesn't really lend itself to the setup, if that makes any sense. Like, the setup is that for some reason the mom insists on having the door closed at some point at night. Then he goes to sleep and he wakes up and his mom is like a monster. And it might be like some weird sleep paralysis thing. It might have actually been a dream. But for some reason, it all had to do with the door being open. Now, there was some kind of weird, superstitious like thing about it that actually might lend itself, like, like almost like a dream catcher effect. I could understand it, but no, it really didn't like feel that way. It really didn't feel like the story itself, like the story in terms of like narrative flow was thought out, because one thing doesn't really connect to the other. The premise does not connect to the stinger, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I don't know, like don't like close the door at a certain time, and I'm trying to think of what would be like an interesting little like I said, a stinger. Like I kept my door open one night out of curiosity, and then I don't know, like, cause like there's nothing that I could add that I could suggest without having some parts be rewritten. Like maybe adding one or two more characters, and I try to avoid that, if only because I want to try to work within the purview of what has already been established within the story itself. Like I would have like I don't know, I would think of like introduce a kind of like an unknown element, like a character that like seems like almost peripheral, but has like a noticeable presence in the story, like maybe a grandpa, and at the middle of the night, like the mom says to close the door. Because every night, Grandpa goes from door to door, and he does something, and I don't know. Like, I don't know. I think that's in and of itself like an unsettling thought. Like maybe he's just like old and senile, and he seems like wheelchair bound. But in the middle of the night, you need to have all your doors closed, or else he'll come in and he'll like be creepy or something like that. Like it doesn't even need to be like an overwhelmingly horrific thing, like supernatural or like even bloody or something like that. It could just be like some weird unsettling shit where like your grandpa is like slumped over, like almost neurotic, and like kind of like seems to be just sleep all day, and like almost be comatose at one point throughout the entire day. And he gets up in the middle of the night and he walks around the house, like even some creepy shit where he's like, normally he's wheelchair bound, but he gets up at the certain time of night, and he walks the halls of the room. And the reason why mom didn't want doesn't want to have the door open is because he's likely to be harassed by Grandpa, who probably just like walks into his room and like stares at him with these like psychotic but glassy eyes, and it's horrifying, and he doesn't know what his grandpa's gonna do, and he just like stays like that. He just like suddenly leaves. And like, mom, like, what the? I'm like, I would even let's leave it in the air too. Like maybe not even have an explanation for it. It's just something that Grandpa does, and Mom apparently knows about it, and her solution to it is just to mitigate it by like, no, I don't want this kid to be freaked out, so just have close the door and he'll be fine. He's not hurting anyone. But that one moment stuck with the main character for years because of that. Just the weird look in his eye, like didn't seem like it should be something that a human could even do, whereas like it is like some kind of weird, almost like demonic possession, and he maybe even keeps it to himself for years, and he like, oh, I felt like I finally wanted to talk about this because I sometimes like wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat because I feel like those eyes are still trained on me, even though my grandpa passed away a long time ago. I went into like a weird tangent, and I really do apologize. So, yeah, this story was kind of weak. Those are my suggestions on how to improve it. Overall, I would say it's really harsh, but I'd probably give this, like, if I had to rate on a curve, like a curve, maybe a 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 10. It has it has a decent, like, an interesting, not, I don't know, like, it has a workable premise. It's just you just need to just rewrite the whole thing. It needs to be. You need to flush the story out. You need to put a little bit more detail into certain things. Describe the character a little bit. Describe his brothers. Have the brothers interact with interact with each other and actually have a presence in the story. Think of a stinger, like a way to end the story that doesn't kind of come off as just kind of forced and quick. And I really, I don't know. Hold on. I don't know, I'm seeing in the comments right now, and it seems like people are trying to, like, there's a lot of people being, respectful about it, and that's always cool to see. I think that this story was re-edited, because I'm looking at it right now, and it says right here, someone wrote, you should separate dialogue into paragraphs of their own, and the punctuation is getting messy by immediately transitioning into exposition after dialogue. Also get rid of capitalizations that aren't the start of the sentence, such a proper noun. I think this story was edited. Maybe that's why it's so formatted so oddly, because he tried to correct and he kind of almost got carried away with trying to make the corrections. Like maybe this was originally submitted like almost like a walls of text, and it just kind of looks different now because of that. So that's my assumption. Again, if the if the author wants to sound off in the comments about how I'm a big stupid doo-doo head and he does not appreciate how I basically like ripped into his work, he's feel free to. Again, I'm not here to piss on in anyone's cornflakes. I'm not here to ruin anybody's day. I'm just here to read a story and have some fun. So if you want to take my criticism to heart or any of my suggestions to heart, feel free to do it or not do it. I don't want to force your hand. And by all means, if you have any stories classified, feel free to, like, if you have any stories that I think like you feel are better representative of you, like your the quality of your work, feel free to let me know. Like, I really would be interested in reading them and like covering them on the show, quote unquote shows. Fucking dickhead sitting in his bedroom with a microphone. That ain't no fucking show. I can't guarantee that I'm going to be like completely glowing, but again, I'm not here to shit on your work. I'm here to like sound off of my honest opinion, and I hope you do enjoy this video, and I hope you did get something out of it, whether it's like something to deride or something to actually laugh at. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and be sure to smash the like button or whatever weird shit people say to get subscribers and all that shit. And let me know in the comments below what you thought of the story and what you would have done to improve it. I don't really know what else to say. Bye.